thought it was love, like sent from above. You're not a soulmate, but ways and actions of a primate. Ruled by lower senses, coming faker than extensions. Pissed away all good intentions. Out of here, sister was missing. Intuition, maybe it was me. I couldn't see, holding on to fantasy, getting bitten by reality.
All right, a little bit of MF Doom. Always a nice way to start the day off. Some MF Doom as the dew just starts to burn off the morning grass. I guess the grass is there throughout the day. It's not really morning grass. But anyways, we're not going to get caught up in those details. What we're going to talk about today is the difference between an opinion piece and an assertion of politically driven, agenda-driven facts, ideologically driven facts, that's dressed up as an opinion piece. So, yesterday, I saw this headline from the good folks at Al Jazeera over in Qatar, or wherever the fuck they are. And I sent a screenshot of this headline to someone that's close to me. And that person's response is the type of response that well-meaning individuals who don't necessarily pay super close attention to the news cycle have when shown something like this. So their response was one word, and it was opinion. And the thought that this person seems to be having is that because it's an opinion piece, the ideological assertion that's made here isn't an issue. And so, in my opinion, the regime and their media apparatus stooges do this all the time. They're constantly using opinion pieces to push what are themselves radical assertions. In this case, here is the assertion of fact, right? So the opinion headline question is the next threat to democracy in the U.S. Moms for liberty? And right below that is the assertion of fact. And I mean, if there were ever proof that people don't look past the headline, the rapidly growing nonprofit is carrying the most radical elements of modern U.S. conservative to the mainstream conservatism. So apparently it is just a fact that they're carrying the most radical elements of modern U.S. conservative to the mainstream. And this guy is not a nobody. This dude is a lecturer in government at Harvard University and in social sciences at Boston University. So, let's see what he has to say here. It sounds like the plot of an over-the-top action movie or political satire. Mothers joining local school boards across the country are actually part of a radical network infiltrating government from the bottom up, determined to take power, punish their opponents, and eventually rule with an iron fist. So this is what James Lindsay refers to as the iron law of woke projection. The radical network infiltrating government, that would be the far left activists. That's why the vice president and president were fundraising for bail money for violent rioters, at least one of whom killed a man after he was released with the bail money that they raised, or helped to raise. So, you could see kind of the gist of this article is basically the same shit as last year when they started trying to treat parents going to school board meetings as domestic terrorism threats. And so what we've seen this year, as opposed to last year, is the issue of parents' rights really being pushed to the forefront. Obviously, it has a lot to do with gender theory and the teaching of CRT. And so you can actually see here, in a political climate, this is this gentleman again in his article, his opinion article. In a political climate marked by violent insurrection, unhinged conspiracy theories, no details there, voting restrictions, no details there, anti-black and anti-LGBTQ censorship. You'll, of course, notice that this dude is black, so no chance we get through the article without him mentioning anti-black shit, even though he's not going to be specific. He gets into mask mandates in Florida schools. He gets into LGBTQ-friendly content. These are the things that he's referring to as the most radical elements of modern U.S. conservatism. So if you, look at a 5-year-old girl and you don't think to yourself, one day that little 5-year-old girl could grow up and be whatever she wants, including a 30-year-old man, apparently you are part of the radical elements of modern U.S. conservatism. And the point of this video is not to deep dive into this article because it's a piece of shit. Al Jazeera is a bullshit, government-funded shit rag that puts out almost exclusively anti-American political propaganda. The point of this is to show the difference between an opinion piece, right, framed as a question that's immediately followed by an assertion of fact. Also, this is under the category of the far right. So, I mean, these women don't even have a chance to differentiate themselves in terms of their political leanings. And so, when this person responded to me and said, opinion, I said, and what? And what I went and pulled up, well, actually, here, we're going to go in this order. I saw this story today, and this is the real reason I decided to make this video, is because it connects the dots in a way that is hard to do without a story to map it onto. A student killed himself after bullying about his vaccination status. Okay? Now, last week in a video, I mentioned that the next person who tells me to wear a mask that isn't an employee of some place is going to get strangled, and this is the reason I said that. The reality is that in a society, when you allow for an ambient level of authoritarianism, this is the type of shit that happens. In a world where students, in a world where people in the grocery store can harass other private individuals about wearing a mask or not, students pick up on that shit. And so when they hear that the new kid isn't vaccinated, they start to bully him. And apparently in this case, he was vaccinated. Obviously, his vaccination status shouldn't make the difference in terms of whether he's bullied. So let's just breeze through this real quick. A 15-year-old boy who was initially targeted by a false rumor that he was unvaccinated was bullied relentlessly until he took his own life in January, a lawsuit claims. And so when you see a lawsuit claims, you could basically read that as according to his parents. The suit filed Monday against the Latin School of Chicago alleges administrators at the private college prep school, which charges more than $40,000 annually in tuition, committed a willful failure to stop the incessant bullying. Now, they're naming the school, employees, parents of the alleged bullies as defendants in the lawsuit. The student transferred. Now, what's interesting is they refer to him here by the initials that are used in the suit. Later in the article, they do refer to him by his full name. He was a young man named Nate, I want to say. So rest in peace to him. He transferred to the school due to its in-person learning during the coronavirus. So he may have been going to a private school before, or a public school before. Now, a student whose parents are named in the lawsuit started spreading a rumor that he was unvaccinated. Now, he actually had been vaccinated, according to the claims in the lawsuit, but he was still harassed on a regular basis. His parents reached out to other families, the parents of the bullies, about it. All right, so, and apparently, this is an interesting little aspect of it. Apparently, a teacher at some point told him he was going nowhere in life. Now, who knows, he could be bullied for reasons aside from vaccination status as well. If you're the new kid at an expensive private school, I think there's a video game about that called Bully. All right, and so see, none of the students were punished, right? So they're telling him in December to kill himself on Snapchat, and none of the students get punished. Now, this is the part of the article that I want to bring some attention to. All right, so Nate's mother contacted the school more than 30 times in October and November alone, but administrators allegedly turned a blind eye to the family's pleas for help. The teen also reported the bullying to the school dean but was disregarded according to the lawsuit. Right? So this is what happens when we're going to refer to things without a value judgment, just according to status on a hierarchy. So we're going to say lower status individuals, like students at a school, when they engage in a behavior and then someone reports that to someone with higher status, like an administrator, and the administrator disregards the complaint of harassment and bullying, the lower status individuals further down on the hierarchy are going to then mirror the disregard from the administrator in this case. And that's the same principle that you see when, if you see people bothering someone about their choice to not wear a mask on a plane or at a grocery store. If the manager of the grocery store says, yeah, fuck it, keep bothering them, they're not wearing a mask, then people are going to keep doing the same thing. And so, again, not trying to take super long here, this is the most important part. The school never told her that Nate had requested a meeting with his dean over the bullying. Right? And his mom says, we would have known and we would have protected him and he'd still be here today. So the school doesn't tell the parents that their son has requested a meeting over incessant, consistent bullying. All right. Now, where in the United States have we seen a story about a school not telling parents about an issue with their kid? Have we seen that somewhere that we've covered on the channel? Have we seen that somewhere that we've covered on the channel? I'm not totally sure. Oh, that's right. The school hid the fucking suicide attempts from her. So even if the school had known that this kid was going to commit suicide, they wouldn't even have told the parents. And now, this is where we bring it home. This is what I talked earlier about, lower status individuals on a hierarchy reflecting and mirroring the actions of higher status individuals on the hierarchy. So if this fucking guy writes an article about how parents taking an active role in their kids' education is actually, in effect, carrying the most radical elements of modern U.S. conservatism to the mainstream, right? He likens them to fucking characters in an action movie that are they're infiltrating government from the bottom up. So this guy wants top-down centralized decision-making, by the way. I didn't want to deep dive into his bullshit article, but all right. And if the school chooses not to why would the school not report the bullying to the parents, right? Why would the school not report the bullying to the parents? Because if they had known, they would have protected them and he'd still be here today. Why would the school not report it? Well, maybe because the fucking president of the United States says shit like this.
But it's true. It public in the world. Have our students gain confidence enough to know what they can do, to reach in. We have an obligation. We have an obligation to help them teach and reach their potential. And you've heard me say it many times about our children, but it's true. They're all our children. And the reason you're the teachers of the year is because you recognize that. They're not somebody else's children. They're like yours when they're in the classroom. You represent a profession that helps them.
All right, so they're like all our children, right? They're not somebody else's children. They're yours when they're in the classroom. So if someone bullies your kid at school, or if your kid at school that you teach, or that you're the principal of the school, if that kid tries to kill himself, it's your kid. It's all of our kids. You have parental rights over this kid that's apparently not yours, but it's society's kid. And so that is the reason that this bullshit is happening. And this bullshit is happening. And when I say this bullshit is happening, I mean motherfuckers are pushing these propagandistic lies about concerned parents being akin to terrorists. All right, this is why, right here.
You've heard me say it many times about our children, but it's true. They're all our children. And the reason you're the teachers of the year is because you recognize that. They're not somebody else's children. They're like yours when they're in the classroom.
Right. So just try to keep that in mind when you look at news stuff in the future. Is this an opinion that he's giving, or is it an assertion of fact that's dressed up as an opinion? Because he's speaking very definitively. And when you see stories about trans kids transitioning at school in a transition closet where they go and they fucking change into different clothes every day when they get to school, different clothes than the ones that their parents drop them off in at the bus or at school. When you wonder, how do these things keep happening? This is how. It's not a mystery. People are mirroring the actions that are rooted in the political and ideological agenda of the regime here. So I just wanted to do a video about opinion pieces and assertions of fact and the fact that Joe Biden is a senile prick.